Dawn in the warehouse's living room. Darkness blankets every corner, curtains remaining tightly drawn over the newly fixed windows. Only small slivers of dawn light seep into the room, casting daggers of dusky gold across the floor. The warehouse's living room almost suffocates under the quiet radiating off of everyone in the room. Failure will do that to people. Door creaks open and my gaze slowly drags up to the doorway. Rebecca strides into the room, her shoulders back and her posture stiff. Tiredness and worry haven't found a place in her businesslike mask. She strides towards the coffee table to place down a now painfully familiar object. It's one of the trapper's prods. "What did you find out about it?" Morgan asks, slinking out of her dark corner to join us. "Never used equipment like that before." "It looks like a version of our revolt guns, but with far more magic pumped into it." Rebecca drags her fingertips over the etched runes in the black plastic coating of the weapon. "It makes it much more volatile, but incredibly effective at bringing down even tough supernaturals." "Can we get some?" Farah asks, her hand drawing near to the prod before Rebecca gently bats it away. She shakes her head. "No, the chance of it exploding or killing the target rather than suppressing them is more than a little likely. They may be able to mimic our technology, but they don't have the resources or knowledge we have to make it truly stable." Farah gives an understanding nod, and the room once again descends into a stifling silence. Footsteps break the quiet as my mother glides over towards me. She turns her back to the others to give us more privacy, even if they will likely still hear whatever she has to say. "I've been informed that the trappers—" She pauses, her lips pursing as though chewing over a word. "That they recognized you." I nod. Yeah, they seemed more interested in me than Sanja when they realized who I was. Worry now pierces completely through her mask until her whole face is pinched with it. "How?" I press my fingers to my eyes. The memory's foggy and heavy to dredge up at the moment. Something about the blood test results? She leans closer, grasping her phone in one hand. "Only the agency knew of the results." "Then it looks like maybe they've been compromised." Her gaze falls to the floor, her shoulders dragging down, and a sort of heartbreak settles in the lines of her frown. Then she meets my gaze again. "No matter if that's happened, I won't let these trappers have you." "Yep." I offer a nod at the statement, but don't say anything in reply. "I only want you to be safe. You know that," she says as she reaches out to squeeze my arm, her fingers shaking slightly. Her phone beeps and she glances down at it. "I have to take this. I'm sorry." She's already gone from the room with the phone to her ear before I can reply. "Going to check if Agent Langford has made any progress," Nat says, moving towards the door. Ava glances up. "I'll join you." She strides forward, following Nat through the doorway. Morgan, who doesn't look anywhere near as interested in the task, trails behind. My gaze moves to find Faraz now that only the two of us are left in the room. I blow out a breath and sink onto the sofa. Hunching over, I run my hands across my hair and stare at the floor. It's been a long day. Farah plops down onto the sofa right beside me. The warmth from her body already helps ease some of the tension that's knotting down my spine. The backs of her fingers brush over the side of my face, prompting me to look at her. Her eyes pierce into mine, silently questioning me about Sanja's death, about if I'm all right. Yes, but no. None of these. Yep, sure. It's difficult to push a smile onto my lips through the emotions which weigh down my expression, but I just about manage it. I offer a nod with the gesture. She gives a small nod in return, her hand moving to settle on my leg. The small touch offers such an intense amount of comfort that I lean back in surprised realization. My gaze slides up to meet her eyes. The amber of them sparkles, holding me in their depths. "Sure, go on." Her hand shifts up to rest on my cheek, her thumb softly tracing over my cheekbone. My lips roll together. A tingle sizzles through the air around us, capturing my every sense and drawing me even closer to her. She smiles at me and leans forward. A sharp rap on the door breaks the silence anticipation, and we flinch away from each other. Nat opens the door and leans inside. "Everything all right? We were worried when you didn't follow." Farah waves a hand between us. "We were doing more than a little all right until you ruined it." Nat's eyes widen, and she looks genuinely mortified. I'm so sorry. Fra sighs and stands. Well, I guess we better check on the others now. I smile to myself, then move to follow her out of the room, my happiness only growing as Farah makes sure to walk at my side. A few days later, at the edge of Hollows Peak, word of Sanja's death had been delivered to the Ma'aluset a couple of days ago. Apparently, Falk hadn't given enough of a reaction for the agents to judge his thoughts on the matter. But he had appeared to Rebecca not long after to set up a meeting for today, likely for a final discussion before he makes a decision, or so she guessed. So now Ava and I are standing and waiting at the edge of the carnival. A carnival which looks as though it had never been burned to the ground by a bunch of crazy money-hungry trappers. The agency, in their hope of getting into Ma Alused's good graces, had helped restore the carnival to what it once had been. Not a hint of a scorch mark or a waft of smoke remains, only the bright stripes of tents and the sweet aroma that had lingered around like candy on the breeze from before. Ava waits with unending patience at the edge of the circle of tents. She's barely moved, her hands curled into the pockets of her coat and her eyes peering into the distance. What is it? She asks without looking at me. I shrug. What's what? You're staring at me. Why? Hmm. It's not exactly like there's much else to do out here while we're waiting, I reply, bundling myself up in my coat against the foggy morning chill. She glances at me. You're not going to pull a Farah on me and start singing or dancing, are you? I can't help but chuckle. Don't worry, I'm not quite that bored yet. She smiles faintly. I'm very glad to hear it, Detective. Are you glad to work for the agency? I ask, continuing the conversation just for something to do. I've never regretted it, she frowns for a moment. It's my home. I shift on the spot to get some heat into my body. What about the others? They seem just as content. Her gaze snaps to mine. Why wouldn't they be? I hold up my hands in defense. I was only asking. She looks away, examining the tents again. This has been your first real mission with us. Do you think you will be prepared for the next? Hmm. Hmm. I spread my hands out in front of me. I guess we'll only know when it happens. That is not what being prepared is about, she replies. You can prepare all you like, but when variables are unknown, you can't be sure you'll actually be ready at all. Ava mulls over that for a moment, even giving a small nod at the truth of the statement. But for now, we need to find out how ready we are for this mission. I gesture out towards the carnival, where someone is approaching us. Ava stiffens in readiness. Inside Falk's tent. One of the Ma'aluset leads us into the same tent as before. The outside gives way to the cavern again, and the realization that magic is very real is once more pressed into my mind. I try to shake it off and concentrate on why we're here. When we reach the cavern, Falk is sitting in the throne-like seat at the far side. It's difficult to keep my gaze from wandering to where Sanja had been before. The space seems hollow. Falk's lip curls into a sneer at our entrance. You came. You asked us to, Ava retorts. I hoped you would not, even at the invitation. He mumbles. Ava and I glance at each other warily. The room settles as the meeting begins. I hear your people made an attempt to rescue mine. His eyes become almost a sad shadow at the mention of Sanja. Ava lets out a heavy breath beside me. We're sorry we could not have found better success. I hear that these trappers may have known of our location through information leaked from your agency. His eyes narrow. Is this true? Ava's jaw clenches at the blunt question. Hmm. Hmm. I mean, do we know? Hmm. It's difficult. I'm not really too fond of any of those answers. I mean, clearly blaming him in this situation, even if it may have some sort of substance to it, is not what you should be doing. Hmm. I think this is the most reasonable option. And yet we still tried to get your friend back after it happened, no matter where that information was leaked from. Pain streaks across his face, and I feel a slight pang of regret at my words. Falk leers at me. Something that wouldn't have happened in the first place had this trappers not known of us. I snap my lips shut. We have been introduced to many new things this past while. We are told that our ways are not applicable, no longer required. He stands from the throne like a cat stretching out of a nap. But being exposed to these trappers makes me think our ways of justice are not so unneeded after all. This world is harsh, and the punishment for the wicked should be just as much so. Let's go with that. The world is harsh, I say in agreement, and his brows flick up in surprise. But that doesn't mean justice or the punishment that comes from it needs to be the same. Why not? I step forward, because justice would quickly turn to vengeance or worse, and we're better than that, aren't we? His reply comes out as a stutter before he clears his throat. And what if we're not? I move a step closer and hold his eye. You are. His pale lips tilt at the corners into a genuine smile that has his eyes shining like obsidian. A weighted silence falls throughout the cavernous space as Falk places a hand to his lips in thought. Only the constant drip of water leaking from the walls into a puddle sounds around us. He turns to slink back to his chair. Your agency is as flawed as its spokespeople. He looks down his nose at us. So many flaws, and so few merits. Then why are we even here? Ava demands. Because unfortunately, this is not just my decision. I will contact your people soon with the final decision. He waves a hand towards the cavern entrance. Now go. We don't bother to say goodbye, and Ava storms out of the tent with me in tow. Delivering this news should be fun. Hey, I think it didn't go that badly. Next chapter.